Okay, so this is the video where I'm going to talk to you about introductions and conclusions because, like I said, they're pretty formulaic if you understand what needs to go in each one of them. And they're also, they counterbalance one another, okay? So that's why this diagram, like this upside down triangle and then right side up triangle. I mean, what's upside down and what's right side up, right? Who says that the point's in charge? These are typically used to teach introductions and conclusions in order to show this, in order to show the sort of the balancing that they do within an essay. Okay, so what does this all mean? Basically, it means this, that if this upside down triangle represents your introduction and this one represents your conclusion, at the beginning of your introduction, in the first sentence, you're going to start broad. Okay? The reason why is because you are bringing your reader into your world. You've got to set a tone. You've got to lay out what it is you're talking about. Then, as you continue in your introductory paragraph, you're going to get more and more specific. And finally, it's going to culminate right here in the point, which is going to be your thesis statement. Okay? And that's your main argument. A conclusion paragraph does the opposite, okay? It starts by restating your thesis or your argument in some sort of way in order to keep it fresh in your reader's mind and also to then make it clear how you're going to talk about the significance of your argument and leave your reader with sort of like food for thought. Why does this all matter? Why are we talking about this anyway? Okay, so for an in-class essay, this is how I would suggest writing an introduction. Okay? So first, in your first sentence, sometimes we call that a hook. A hook means you're grabbing your reader's interest and things like that. If it's an in-class essay, you need to get out like what are the fundamental things that my reader needs to understand in order for me to like get going with my writing. You don't need to perseverate or like worry about how do I say something deeply profound or quote something that's going to encapsulate the feeling and set a tone. Now, there are ways to make your opening sentence more interesting, but here is what you fundamentally need to do in your opening sentence for an in-class essay. You need to give me the name of the author, the name of the text, all of it properly formatted, okay? So I want to see italicized, book titles, if it's a book title, or if it's a long epic poem, perhaps, like the Odyssey. You need to correctly spell both of those things because they are readily available on the cover of your book. You should not be misspelling the Odyssey or Odysseus or Homer. And it's helpful to provide like a very broad overview of like what happens in the book. Or if, for example, like our study of the Odyssey, we're focusing on 9 through 12, you could give a broad overview of what happens in books 9 through 12. So what is that? It's like Odysseus is telling the story of his journey and the various obstacles he encounters as he's trying to get home after surviving the Trojan War. Okay? So if you lay that out in Homer's The Odyssey, Odysseus, and then you would give a very brief little statement about who he is, the protagonist, a hero of the Trojan War, any sort of a positive phrase, so just like not a positive, but a positive, so it's just like a little brief aside about who he is. And then you're gonna give that overview, okay? So that's opening sentence. That's almost something that you could like have in your brain ahead of time. Okay, the second thing you're gonna do in this introduction, again, I'm giving you a formula, so you don't have to follow it, but I'm telling you like what you need. So it's a useful framework to work within. I want you to introduce your topic. So what prompt are you responding to? Like what theme are you following? You need to introduce it, okay? And you need to figure out a way to transition from this broad overview to your topic. So in the Odyssey, monsters play an integral role in blah, 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 right? Something like that. Okay, here's where things get a little bit more nebulous, so I can't exactly tell you what you need to write. But let's say in your thesis statement, you know that you're going to be focusing on, let's say, Odysseus and Polyphemus. Okay, you're setting up an argument about the sort of, let's say, we discussed in class. Odysseus is not as great as he seems, or seems to think he is, and Polyphemus is actually not as bad as Odysseus thinks he is, or we're meant to think he is, or whatever. That's your thesis. So then anything that goes in between you introducing your topic of, let's say, monsters, and you talking about laying out your actual argument, is you have to give us the context that we would need in order to understand that argument, okay? So you should probably explain briefly who Polyphemus is, why Odysseus ends up there, why is this like an important episode? And you don't need to go on and on and on. In fact, your introduction could be just 4 sentences, right? It might be 5 if you want to have like 2 sentences of context, but it really could just be 4, okay? And this is exactly how you would lay it out. So that's an introduction.